What's up, guys? Nicholas here, and we're doing a little OSG recap. So I want to do a little more of an athlete highlight, just give a little more recognition to all the great athletes that came out this year for the official Strongman Games in Daytona Beach. Especially with the hurricane Nicole coming through, there was a lot of different moving parts. So the competition got condensed into 2 days instead of three. So doing, for the men's side at least, three events on one day, which is Saturday, and then four events on Saturday, and the last three events being the final events, so only the top 10. But I wanted to cover this because, of course, I wish I was there, but there were so many great athletes. It was very stacked, official Strongman Games, 105 kilo class, so I wanted to highlight the names and kind of talk about some of the things that I saw from watching the live stream all weekend. So with a super stack class, I think originally in my episode 39 of the Strongman Winner Circle podcast, I predicted there were probably 16 or 17 different guys that I thought could make the finals. And the final guys, probably I got most of them right, but there's a few of them that probably snuck in there that I didn't have on my list. But there's some guys I wanted to kind of mention because there were a lot of studs that didn't make it into the finals. In 20th place, there was an Englishman by Chris Harrison. He's UK's strongest man. England's strongest man, 105 kilo. And he had, of course, a great time, but this is his first time coming to an OSG. And doing OSG for your first time is a little more of an experience. It's a different pace. There's a lot of athletes, a lot of things going on. So it's usually a great experience, and usually when guys come around the second time, they get a little more experience. They kind of know the way of the land. Yuri Kattlecheck ended up taking 18th overall, of course missing the finals, and he's another great athlete. He's a former ultimate strongman world champion. He won the Grand Prix, I think, back in 2018. He's been Europe's strongest man. He's won different international Arnold 105 kilos. He's probably one of the greats when it comes to the European scene. But he came in with kind of, I think, a torn proximal bicep tear. He did a team competition a few weeks out to it, and then that's when he tore it. So he was probably a little limited what he can do. Usually he's a good deadlifter. He didn't really pull to what he's normally used to. So it was a little bit of a tough day for Yuri. But Yuri's a great athlete, so I hope to see him again next year. But then 17th place, just edging out Yuri, was Ollie Clark. Ollie Clark is a young, up-and-coming Englishman. I believe he's 21, 22 years old. He had a great showing for his first OSG. I think he redeemed himself from his Clash debut of last year. So I look forward to seeing more of Ollie Clark, just because he's also so young, and if he stays in the sport even another 5 or 6 years at minimum, we should be seeing him in some of these different final shows, if not worlds, and some of these other big contests. Paul Manwanza from Zambia, he ended up taking 15. He was a finalist from the year before. I had the pleasure of competing with him. But I think just one of those things where with more guys than last year, and of course some more quality guys, you have to really be solid throughout all the events. And I think he just came a little short of that. In 14th place, there was my buddy, Mr. Mike O'Connor. Mike was pretty much a rep away, either a sandbag away, one more rep on the Viking press from making the finals. And he's a great competitor. I'm very, very proud of Mike. He really put himself out there. He competed in 3 different international shows this year. He did Clash, he did the World Ultimate Show, that was like 5 weeks ago, and he also did, of course, this OSG. And he won 2 class regional shows this year. So he probably competed more than, of course, more often, doing 5 weight cuts in a year, which is pretty nuts. But he's probably one of the more seasoned competitors of this year. And of course, that's a lot to ask to do 3 competitions within 12 weeks leading up to OSG. So that's a tall order, but it's a great experience. So we're going to see Mike again, and I bet his next show is going to probably be a great show, especially when he maybe puts in a good 12 week prep into a big show. In 11th place, there was Stephen Bradley. Stephen is a great competitor. Stephen, he won USS Nationals at the 220 last year. He came in, I believe, 6th place. I think he just probably lost too many points on the Viking press. I think he needed a few more reps to really make the finals. But Stephen is also a young competitor, and I think we're gonna see him. We're gonna see him again. But just to kind of really show how busy, how stacked this OSG lineup was. So the finalists. So starting with 10th place, we have Ireland's strongest man. We have Sean Diver. I'm sorry, I don't quite know if there's an Irish pronunciation to the last name, but we're gonna go with Sean Diver. But Sean was Ireland's strongest man. He also competed at the Ultimate Strongman 105 kilo that was in Paris. He took 4th there. He also took 2nd at the UK 105 kilo show. So he had a pretty busy year as well. But it was great to see him come around. He has, of course, a great grip, and he's just a great competitor. So looking forward to see more from him. 9th place was Matthew McKeegan, who also had a very busy year. 2nd at Clash, 3rd at the Ultimate Strongman 105 kilo. And just like Mike O'Connor, he competed in 3 high-level international shows, Clash, Worlds, and OSG. So all kind of great experience. And I believe McKeegan also put in a few other shows on top of that. So he was, of course, very busy going to that, but he competed all weekend, very tough. So he took 4th the year prior. So I know he probably not the finish that he wanted, but I bet he's going to be coming back full force next year. In 8th place, so this guy I didn't quite have on my radar. This is Alec Sokup. So he was the Southwest regional winner for OSG. So there's a few regional comps in the U.S. and he was the winner of that. He's originally from Oklahoma, but he had a great show. So great to see him make the top 10. In 7th place was Mr. Jonathan Parker. He had a great showing. He tied for the win on the deadlift with McKeegan and also Frank Provenzano. And he had a solid rest of the show, a great event. So he's really showing the world that he's proving that he's not just a deadlifter, but a well-rounded strongman athlete. In 6th place, you have my boy, Justin Loy. Justin, he was working through a lot of imbalances in his glute hips and also his back. So coming in, being able to take 6th place, and I think it was a huge accomplishment. He had a great run on the yoke. I think on the car yoke, he beat his time from last year by 5 seconds. So really a huge improvement on that. I think he did great on stones. I think he really wanted that 3rd rep on the dumbbell. He did great on the Viking press as well. So Justin had a great showing, and I think he has a lot of big plans for the off season. So excited for him to see come back full force. So rounding up the top 5, we have Brandon Burley. So Brandon, we haven't seen much of Brandon. I actually got to meet Brandon at the USS Nationals. He was the winner at 242, so he got his invitation to the Clash finals for next year. But Brandon looked pretty solid in his training, just really well-rounded in terms of pressing, the sandbag, deadlifting. So he was actually on my list to make the finals. And Brandon, of course, really showed why he deserved to be there. So he had a great showing, and I think we're going to see more of Brandon. In 4th place, we have my boy, Frank Provenzano, and this is probably Frank's best showing ever. And Frank did a great job, and he keeps getting better every competition, every time he steps on the floor. Last year, of course, I was super proud of him when he took 5th at America's Strongest Man, and he was the top amateur receiving his pro card. This year, he took 6th in a tough field, but came right back to OSG and put his probably best performance ever. So he come with some 5th, some 4th, some 6th. He's always in the conversation. He's always going to be fighting for the top. So I'm very proud of Frank. But Frank keeps tying on the deadlift. I think he's tied at Nationals on the deadlift for number 1. He tied with me last year, America's Strongest Man, for number 1. Tied this year deadlift for number 1. And this year, again, he tied on the deadlift. But Frank, I want to see you win those deadlifts. Number 3 was Nicholas Hine. So Nick has pretty much roared in the last calendar year. He took a 5th place last year at OSG. He took a 2nd at a regional behind Jeffrey Lee Took fifth at Clash, and now take third. He took third here at OSG, so his first really significant podium. And of course, it was a great showing by Mr. Hine, but he's proving that he's gonna be a threat anytime he kind of enters a show. So he's had about 405 kilo shows under his belt. So we'll see. I think we'll see more of him. Other notable third place OSG placers in the past that I can think of, we had like Tyson Morrissey, who went on to be SCL's world champion. You had, of course, Justin Lloyd from last year. Of course, a former national winner. So, of course, a lot of great athletes that have placed third at OSG. So, in second place, Mr. Dan Hughes. So Dan had a great showing. He had all great events. I think the only mistake he made was maybe the dumbbell. I think he had a great prep and he was looking for a little more reps on the dumbbell, but everything else, he showed up on every event. This is his second really significant podium. He had a great finish at the Clash of the Finals early in the year, taking third and taking second. So he's really proven himself that he deserves to be on those world stages, and he's always going to be kind of a threat going forward. I think one of the things that really drove him this year was that he was never really in the kind of the conversation when it comes to some of the top guys that maybe finish him. But that's not going to be a question anymore, because Dan's going to be on top of everybody's mind going forward, and I think he's going to be a real threat for the potential Clash finals or any show, America's Strongest Man, next year. Other notable second placements at OSG, myself in 2017, Isaac Mays in 2019. We both went on to win Clash. So is Dan going to be that third member of taking second at OSG and winning the Clash finals? Who knows? We'll see. But I want to put it past Dan. And then the last, but not least, the champion Andrew Clayton. Andrew Clayton won his second 105 kilo title. When I originally was prepping for this, I knew that a healthy Andrew Clayton was going to be a very dangerous healthy Clayton, and he showed up on every event. He didn't even need to do the last event, but he still did it and ended up winning the stones. But Clayton has always kind of been a great competitor. He goes through great lengths to really prep for all these shows in every facet when it comes to recovery, training, programming, and execution. So Andrew winning his second World's Strongest Man title puts him in the likes of Anthony Furman, Ben Kelsey, and I had to pause it because I had to pull up the name. Back in 2009 to 2010, a gentleman by Vitaly Gerzimov from the Ukraine ended up winning two World's Strongest Man 105 kilo titles, the only 105 kilo titles at the time. I forget which kind of federation, but that makes four guys tied with two World's Strongest Man titles. So he puts himself in very great company. He also earlier in the year won a regional competition for the Clash. So we're going to potentially see him at the Clash final 2023. So of course that's my little bit of kind of the athlete highlight. And some people will ask, will I come back next year to take back the title? And the answer is no. I announced on my buddy Steve Tripp's podcast that I'm moving up to the open class. But I am a 10-year veteran of the sport, especially in the 105 kilo class. I'm also a huge fanatic. So myself not being in the class anymore, I might be more prone to making more, maybe ranking more videos or 105 kilo content going forward. But if you guys think that there's any type of content you want me to talk about or to produce regarding the 105 kilos, put it down in the comments. But moving on from that, that's all for today. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, notification bell so you know when all the cool videos are coming out. And until next time, stay strong.